Hey everyone, in this episode of Race With Me, we're going to continue with the idea of the not on our watch commitment that we spoke about in the last video, but take it a little bit more closer to home as we look at interrupting and calling out racism and prejudice when it appears in the lives of our family and our friends. So we've spoken about this idea of a not on our watch commitment to interrupt racism and prejudice. And the way that I see it, the way that I do it, is that whenever I see racism or prejudice, whether it's online or offline, my commitment is to interrupt that. And so if it's a friend on Facebook, if it's a friend's friend, and I see a racist joke or whatever, my commitment is to jump in and say that's not okay. However, in reality, I would suggest that proximity gives authority. So if you don't know me at all, you make a racist comment, I jump in and say that's not okay, it's very easy for you to discredit my opinion, to go, who the heck are you, and to just ignore me. It's a lot harder when it's coming from a friend or a family member. And so this episode is about calling stuff out, in particular, especially when it's people that you know. And the other side of it is that it becomes a lot harder when it's people that you know, because there are relationships at stake. Relationships are going to be affected. It generally does not go well when you call someone out on racism or prejudice. When you suggest that somebody has made a comment or done an action that is not okay, it generally, you don't point it out and people go, thank you so much for telling me, yo, silly me. It often goes badly. People are often defensive. Most of us don't like being called out for stuff. We don't like being challenged for stuff, even if we're wrong. And I know that for me, I will go and think about something and you often realize later that I was wrong. But in the moment, I am often also just really defensive. It's a natural state to think that we're right. How dare you challenge me? That kind of thing. And so this is a call for this stuff to start becoming a little bit more complicated, a little bit more tricky, and a little bit more costly. And it's not saying that we do this at the expense of times when it's not people we know. But it's saying especially and particularly when it's friends and family members, you don't let them get away with being racist or being prejudiced without interrupting. And so if this is a family dinner where an uncle makes a racist statement, if this is a group of friends on a weekend away where somebody says something that is really prejudiced, it is the commitment to continue to step in and interrupt, and at the very least say that is not okay. But hopefully there's space for conversation, there's space for dialogue and for explaining why, for helping people to understand why that particular word or phrase or idea or action was hurtful or potentially hurtful to someone else. And so it is realizing that with proximity, with closeness in relationship, there is more likely going to be authority of voice. And so you are the best person to interact generally with your family and friends, because they know you, they respect you, they love you. Hopefully they will listen to you. They might not listen to you, it might go badly, but they're more likely to listen to you than they are to listen to me. And so I've spoken about family. The next place to speak about is WhatsApp groups, and in particular, and I think I've mentioned this before, neighborhood watch WhatsApp groups tend to be some of the most toxic places. Not all neighborhood watch WhatsApp groups. There's some doing some really good jobs, and even some of the ones doing really good jobs in terms of the neighborhood watch stuff can still be deeply racist or problematic. I've heard so many stories from people that have either left groups or spoken about stuff, been kicked out of groups, or just had a lot of kind of chaos ensue because they dared question something in a neighborhood watch WhatsApp group. One of the examples that you find in many of these groups is that they have codes for black males, BM, colored males, CM, and I've also heard Indian males, IM. But typically, they don't have codes for white males, and maybe this is something we can look at another time. But there's a practice of stereotyping, of suspicion towards one group and not another group, and that is a moment for you to speak up and say that is not okay. The hope is also that the more voices that are speaking up about stuff, the more likely it is for the message to get home. So if somebody makes a a racist comment in a WhatsApp group and one person says that's not okay and nobody else speaks about it or backs them up or agrees, it's very easy to dismiss or ignore that voice or to get defensive and kick them out. The moment somebody says something that is kind of challenging a racist idea, and we're going to look at this more in our next video, and 10 other voices jump in and go, yes, that is not okay, you need to stop, then suddenly with the massive voices, it's more likely for the message to get across. It's more likely for racism to be interrupted well. And so we need to be looking at doing that as well. And an example that I can give that's not race related is I'm in a hockey WhatsApp group for a group that I play hockey with, Masters group. So it's people over 35. It's a largely white group, mostly white group, which is totally unrelated to the story, which I said wasn't about race. And one of the guys months ago, maybe even a year or two ago, posted an ad that had a picture of a woman and a slogan that was very derogatory and just disgusting, actually. It was very anti-woman and basically treating a woman as an object. And I jumped into the group and interjected, I think quite calmly, and said, hey, this ad is problematic, please take it down. And I was met with a lot of defensiveness from the person that had posted it, a bit of defensiveness from some other guys, and really not much support. Eventually, there was a decision in the group to not post non-hockey related matters, but it was a very lonely place. It was a very hard thing. I had friends in the group that didn't speak up, and it didn't go well. But my commitment was to interrupt when there's stuff that is anti-woman, just as I've made the same commitment when it's stuff that is racist. And so it might mean that I end up leaving a neighborhood WhatsApp group. It might end up that I end up leaving a hockey team, for example, or a group that I'm part of. If they refuse to change, if they refuse to take it seriously, then the consequences might be broken relationship in some way or ways. And so this is a costly thing. It doesn't always go well. It's not going to always be comfortable. It's probably not ever going to be comfortable. But there are going to be times when people can learn lessons, where people can change, and that's what we're always hoping for. But we are saying that even if no change happens, I'm not going to let racism pass by uninterrupted. I'm not going to let somebody say something racist without hearing very boldly, that is not okay. And so that's really what we're talking about. And so I want to encourage you, start with those closest to you, because proximity gives authority. Your family members might not agree with you, but they have to make a choice in that moment. They love you, they care for you, they have a relationship with you. If you're interjecting about something they've done, then there's some kind of listening or some kind of interaction that has to happen there, and choices have to be made. But I want to encourage you that the people you know and love, that hopefully know and love you, are going to be the ones where you are likely to have the most positive effect. You're likely to have the most beneficial outcome. But at the same time, I want to say to you, keep on interrupting wherever you see it. But make sure that you're definitely calling out when it comes to family and friends and spaces that you're part of. The more of us that keep doing this, the more the notion arises, the more the belief arises that racism is not welcome. Yeah, and you might not change that person, but you're changing spaces at least, and you're making spaces safer and more comfortable, especially for people of color. So let's do it. Let's do it together so that it becomes a little bit easier, and let's commit to creating or to being part of a country where racism does not pass by uninterrupted.